Hello, ladies and gents. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening from. Welcome back to another episode of Chat with Chaps. And this one is the opposition view. And today we are going to be getting the latest and the lowdown on Hull City as we travel to Hull on Saturday. In order to do that, we welcome to the show a Hull City fan, Ant. How you doing, Ant? Good evening, mate.
How you guys? How we doing? Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. It's still nice and sunny up here, so yeah, we're not used to sun in the northern areas, so we're making the most of it.
That's a rarity, mate. That's a rarity. And also joining us today, we have a familiar face to the Chat with Chaps podcast. Jesper, how you doing, Jesper?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Always good to be back on and just enjoying the last summer here in Copenhagen as well.
How hot is it? Go on, make us jealous.
No, you're not going to be envious. It's around 20, 21 degrees, so not boiling, I can tell you. But okay.
Yeah, similar.
Yeah, similar.
All right. Well, let's get into it then. So, want to just state that we are recording this on a Tuesday evening. So, if there are any transfers or whatever that's done post that, I fully expect Millwall to announce the signing of Daniel Kelly, whether it be involved on Saturday. Who knows? But yeah, just wanted to state that because I don't want anyone hollering at the screen saying, "Oh, how come you haven't talked about this?" So, and how was the season started for you? Just give us your view on your start to the season.
Well, it was quite a chaotic summer. I think it was well documented that we kind of really went for it last season, especially in January, and losing out on the top six ultimately lost Rosenior his job. Added to obviously the style of play as well, where it wasn't really as entertaining as our owner would want. So we've just decided to go with a full rebuild. We finished 3 points outside the top six last season, which a lot of people would deem a success. But, when you look at some of the players we had, like Cavalier, Delap, Philogene, Jacob Greaves, these kind of players, then realistically, we probably should have been in that top six. And we only won 3 of our 13 last games, and that's what cost us in the end. So, total rebuild this summer. I think we lost 20 players or something like that, near or nearabouts. Obviously, players released, loan players going back, and then ones we've sold. All of our goals have gone. So Tufan, who scored 9 or 10 goals, is gone. Philogene was our top scorer. He's gone. Liam Delap's gone. Fabio Cavalio's gone. Aaron Connolly's gone. All our goals just absolutely vanished, and we didn't seem like we was going to do any form of transfer business. The squad just looked like it was, bottom half Championship, top end League One standard, as Tim Volter was coming in. So it was quite a worry. But the owner's come out, done a Q&A and said obviously he's got a dual role. He's kind of on the board of directors at Fenerbahce as well. So he was helping sort their Champions League campaign out and then focusing on us, which, 6 signings since he said that, to be fair, has shown that he was a man of his word. But it's one of them where August was a bit of a write-off for us, I think, because of the amount of time it's taken us to get really cracking with the transfers in this window. We know the squad's maybe 5 or 6 players short of being anywhere near where the manager wants it to be. So any points that we pick up this month was a bonus. We've managed to draw both our games. I think, it was quite a fortunate draw against Bristol, equalising late on, but the equaliser against Plymouth was, kind of testament to the style of play that's involved. So wants to do with your fullback sort of, those fluid rotations and the right back inverting and almost making sort of like a Roberto Carlos-esque run through the middle of the park and then kelling it into the top corner. It's one of them. Just see how many points we can get by the end of this month. I think mid-September will be where we can fully start to judge this squad and hope that the style of play started to bed in with the players and we know exactly who we've got and where we're going. At the minute, it's just get through this month. We went out in the cup. I don't think we're too bothered about that. We didn't really have enough players to field a starting 11 in the league, never mind the cup. So, but we played really well. We played really well in moments. It's a little bit heart attack football at the back, but it's going to be an exciting season. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and we'll certainly touch on the new manager's style of play, shall we say, and maybe the way he likes to set up his defence. But have you, how much of an evolution of playing style have you noticed in the first 2 league games? Is it really apparent yet, or is that something that you think is, as you say, it will be more prevalent sort of come September, October time?
Yeah, it'll definitely take a few more weeks, I think, to fully bed it in. I mean, I listened to an interview with Volter. He was talking to one of our local radio stations and he was saying that it's taken him the best part of a decade to get this style of player that he wants fully ingrained in his head. And it's never perfect, because the system is never perfect. But he said this is pretty much, the style of player he has. He's blended this over his entire career, and he's at a point now where he feels like he can come into a new team and instill this style of play. For us, we can still see the teething issues from Rosinia's more passive, slow, static style of player from last season. So one of our biggest criticisms of last season was that when we had the ball, we were sometimes too safe with the passes. We didn't really, take any risks. We were too static off the ball, so it made us really easy to set up against, because if teams sat deep and suffocated the space, then we really didn't create anything, because there was no rotations or players sort of moving about and making themselves available. And I think you can see Volta's frustrated at times on the side, because we get the ball into a really promising position, and then rather than probing and putting the ball in behind or putting it in the box, they'll turn around and start again. And that's something from last season. You can tell he's really mad, and he's trying to get that out of him, because he's a very passionate man on the touchline. When he's mad. I find that really entertaining. He was like chucking water bottles on the pitch and everything. It was really funny. But no, it's going to take us wait. I mean, we haven't even got all the players that he needs yet, and we've got some players that have had to be recalled from loan spells just so that we can fill the bench and things like that. So realistically, he's trying to incorporate this style of player with players he's not going to use. So it's really hard for us to judge where we're at right now, because realistically, until the transfer window is shut, we don't know which players we're going to be using in which position. We've got a faint idea now that we've brought some really good signings in, but again, they've got to get used to obviously being in a new club, a new country for some players, into this system and what is expected of them, and those partnerships with the players around them. So yeah, it's going to take us a few weeks, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you touched on their sort of players that you've recalled from loans and things like that. And one player that kind of fits that is Ryan Longman, right? I know he was obviously on loan with us last season, and I think I speak on behalf of Millwall fans that we assumed it was a done deal. We assumed he would be back. Spoke to him at the end of season awards, and he said, publicly that he loves it here, and if something could be sorted, he'd be delighted. And I know you don't necessarily share this view, but he was quite useful to us last season, particularly under Neil Harris, and he's out injured at the moment, right? But he did start a lot of games pre-season for you, right?
Yeah, he was actually one of our best players pre-season, which was odd. I feel like he's come back with a bit of a point to prove, and I don't know if this new system might give him a newer lease of life. I don't think he was the player for Rosinia's system whatsoever. The problem is with Longman is he's the kind of player that when he first goes somewhere, he shows glimpses of what he can do, and you just don't see it consistent enough. He drifts in and out of games too often for me. He's prone to a good worldie. He will smash you maybe 3 or 4 in from 30 yards a season, but other than that, he doesn't really contribute much. And it is quite harsh when you think about it, because he is still relatively young, and some of his best periods for us came when he was playing as a wing back. So I think he's maybe lying to himself, and that's probably his best position. But it's finding a way to stick him in the team. And then obviously with how thin our squad was this season, it was looking more and more likely that he was going to be a part of this squad, which is why maybe we've not sold him to Millwall. I think us as a fan base fully expected him to go to you guys on a permanent. And I think if we could have made, between 500k to $1 million on him, I think, it'd have been an absolute no-brainer for him to go. It'd have suited everybody. But like you say, maybe just because of how thin our squad is, that's kind of been taken out of your hands. And we've kind of said, well, no, you need to be part of it here. And then, like you say, he started the pre-season really well, looked really good, one of our best players. And then, unfortunately, got an injury. I think he's just had to have surgery on his shoulder. So he might be out for a while, which is a bit of a shame. But, yeah, if he has a part to play and this system's better suited to him, then, yeah, let's see what he's got until January.
Yeah, I mean, Jesper, I don't know what you think, but I'm still hopeful that a deal can be done for Ryan Longman. My assumption is that you played hardball due to the size of your squad and just said, look, if you want him right now, Millwall, you've got to pay more than we paid, which is £1 million. And if you're not prepared to do that, then it's not going to happen anytime soon. But then I think the injury hasn't helped things, because maybe that's then changed the plans. But I'm still not sure if he'll end up being a Millwall player, even if it's in January. What do you think, Jesper? What was your take on Longman when he was with us last season?
I think it was, we saw one Longman in the beginning struggling to find his feet at us. He played all over the place, basically. He played right wing back, left wing back, striker, left midfielder. But as soon as Harris came in and we went back to a 4-4-2 and he was playing on the right, on the left, he really was, I thought he was starting to find his feet, and I thought he actually looked decent in our system. and he could do a difference. So I agree with you that he's definitely a winger. He's not a striker in my eyes, but I think he did a good job for us, and he's a grafter as well. And that's we like these type of players down at the Den as well. So I could see him back at Millwall, but of course the shoulder injury I think could provide a hurdle. Signing him now, maybe we will go back in for him in January if he's fit. But I don't think we will sign him because we also need players here and now. Just like you guys, we have a thin squad. We need players. We need bodies in the building. And if he's injured, then I don't think they will go in for him now.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at your transfer business, and obviously you got a large sum of money for Greaves and the Philology. Maybe you can fill us in. I don't know if you did end up clearing a large sum of money, but you spent over £15 million this summer, if I've got that right. If Transfermarkt's correct, you've got sort of, according to this, 5.3 million euros on Ryan Giles, Charlie Hughes, Liam Miller, Mason Burstow, Marvin Mellum, Anthony Rakiopa. So all of those fees apparently add up to around 15 million. Which one of those signings, Ant, has excited you the most?
Liam Miller. Well, two really. Miller and Malem, they both look really good. Liam Miller, I think, was probably the biggest surprise because there were a lot of championship clubs in for him, and he had a really good season for Preston last year on loan. And with us being so slow initially with our transfer business this summer, I thought we would miss out on Liam Miller, but somehow we've managed to convince him to come here, and for only about £1.5 million, which I think is, for a player of his quality, is quite astonishing, really. But yeah, no, he looks like he's going to be the one that's going to be creating and scoring goals for us on the left-hand side. I feel like he's getting better with every game he plays as his sharpness gets up and his understanding of those players around him and how they play. A left-hand side of Ryan Giles and Liam Miller, to me, seems like, that would be envious from most championship sides. So yeah, I'm really excited to see Miller when he's at full fitness and fully firing. And Marvin Malem, he came across as one of those players that we didn't really know anything about. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know much about German football, but he came across with a bit of a reputation for being a real hard grafter. He can create goals, but he's happy tracking back and getting stuck in. Kind of the perfect midfielder for this system, really. And he has, since he's come in, he's been absolutely fantastic. He reminds me a bit of Robert Corran when we had him here. He's a proper box-to-box midfielder. He's happy doing every bit of that midfield work, links up really well. Took his goal against Sheff Wednesday well as well. So I feel like these signings, the more they're here and the more they start to click, the better it will be. But those two so far have been our best signings. I think the one with most optimism is Charlie Hughes, but we've obviously not seen him play yet. He comes with a really big rep from Wigan as being like the next big EFL star. So we'll have to wait and see what he's like.
Yeah, and he could make his debut on Saturday out here, which
it's likely. Yeah, I mean, Sean McLaughlin, who's our left-sided centre-back at the minute, obviously there's a big Jacob Greaves-shaped hole there at the minute. He's just not really suited to this system at all. He's not fast enough, is McLaughlin, to do what Walter wants him to do, because sometimes our centre-backs end up as number 10s. Like, to anybody listening to this, it sounds absolutely ludicrous, but when you see us play, you'll understand like what I mean. Just the way the system works, like we pretty much camp on the halfway line when we've got the ball, and the centre halves are encouraged to just like make runs into the box during open play, not just for set pieces. So, but McLaughlin's just not fast enough to do that role. So if you lose possession, you leave yourself very, very vulnerable on the counter attack, and someone like Maka really struggles to get back. So I think we've been looking at obviously a defender who's really comfortable on the ball, that's got a bit of pace about him, that's got an eye for goal, but he's also comfortable on the ball. Greaves would have been absolutely perfect, but he's on to bigger and better things. So we've stolen the next big one from Wigan. So hopefully he can come in and just slot straight into that back four and give us what we've been looking for.
Yeah, no, I think personally, I think Jacob Greaves was the best centre back in the league by some distance last year. But you touched on there your manager's interest in playing style, and whilst many Millwall fans won't necessarily be familiar with his style, Jesper certainly is, because Jesper, you might as well tell everyone what you've been telling me.
Yeah. So the story is, and that I used to live 5 years in Hamburg. I've grown up in Denmark, and when I was a kid, after our season would finish, we would travel to Hamburg and watch them play. So I always had an eye for them. just to see how they get on, how they play, and they are often on telly here in Denmark as well. So Hamburg hired Tim in 21 to get them back to the Bundesliga. They had tried 2-3 seasons before, still not succeeded, and obviously they hired Tim because of his, let's say, adventurous style of play, which you might have discovered already. And then he failed to get promoted twice in a row. And I think what I noticed was that you could sort of summarize the tactics by go big or go home, because the way he plays is very risky. What you could say about Hamburg is they were by far the better team on paper in the second Bundesliga. So most of the times they would succeed and they would play well, but they would also lose games where you thought, but how? And that's because they were giving the ball away in silly situations. They were trying to build up, as you might see now with Hull. Very dynamic. You see the left back moving to centre back. The centre back is running forward with the ball. Defensive midfielder is going back. And I think what I read is that he's trying to create an overload in the first part of the pitch, and then create an overload also when he moves forward, so you can create like a 6 against 5. And that's why your keeper, as I can see in the highlights I've seen, is joining in as well as a sweeper. Yeah, so it's a very, I would say, progressive style of play. And I just managed to watch your highlights here today against Plymouth and Bristol, and that was just the highlights. And 3 times I saw you giving the ball away in very dangerous situations that where you nearly conceded, but was lucky enough not to. So, what do you think? Are you more excited about this style of play that he brings, or are you a bit sort of, oh, this could go wrong later on in the season?
Me personally, I'm really excited to see it, because I feel like I mentioned earlier, he's still not got the team that he wants in order to do it. And I think we have got some players in the squad that are capable of doing what he's asking. We're just nowhere near that point yet. So, but he constantly reiterates in any of his interviews in games about how in training he's absolutely hammering home to these players how important it is to look after the ball when you've got possession, because this style, like you say, with the build-up play and the way that the rotations happen on the pitch, we leave ourselves so open on the counter. So if you don't look after the ball and you're not passing absolutely spot on and you give it away, the chances of you conceding is so high, because you've committed so many men forwards. So what he wants is a team to absolutely dominate possession and just keep it in your half. He just wants it to be an absolute acid test where we camp on the halfway line and we're just constantly passing the ball around you to the point that it just caves in and we score. But if we give the ball away, like we say, then we're really, really vulnerable. So we've kind of seen it in patches. We've also had a lot of heart in your mouth moments where we've tried to play out from the back and we've been cornered into our own box basically and almost giving it away. Sheff Wednesday game, I think, is the perfect. If you could just watch that game from minute 1 to minute 90, it sums up everything about Tim Walter's style of play and where we're at the minute, where the first 10 minutes was absolutely chaotic, where the defending was just abhorrent. A mistake from the goalkeeper leads to a goal, but we score a nice goal on the other way, playing that style. And then the second half, we just absolutely dominated them to the point I think we had 75% of the ball at some point, and they couldn't get out of their half. So it's shown what it can do, but we've also seen its vulnerabilities. So there's a lot of fans that are really sceptical of it, which is understandable, because as a fan, when you're sat there in the stands and you're watching your team mess about with it at the back and giving it to your goalkeeper as often as you can, it is worrying. It is. But for us, I think because of how sort of dull we were under Rosenior last season, especially at home, I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of games I really enjoyed watching us at home last season. We were quite boring. This season's a welcome refresh to me. I just want to see 2 teams trying to win the game. So, yeah, to me, risk it all football. Let's just have a season of it and see where we end up. I'm excited, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because we had, I wouldn't say a similar transition, but we tried last year. We had Joe Edwards coming in, maybe not playing the same style as Tim is, but it was much more progressive. But he also inherited a team that was not yet capable of playing this type of football. So where we were all excited in the beginning, maybe as you are now, that excitement sort of drifted a little bit as we went on to lose 2 and 3 games. We conceded goals where we were caught out of possession. Players were not used to playing this style. And I'm just thinking, with all respect for Hull, do you really reckon that you have a team that can do it also against the best teams? Do you reckon that this is how you're going to set up against the likes of Burnley, Leeds as well when you play away from home? Because as I remember Tim he did not compromise on his style of play, whether they were playing one of the better teams in the second Bundesliga or one of the worst ones. It was always the same. It was always passing out from the back and these dynamic set of plays. And I think that's what, in the end, also what caused the promotion, that he was too stubborn, that he didn't want to compromise. And I also think when we hit November, December, when the pitches are not that good, it's a bit wobbly, it's raining, it's snowing, it becomes even more risky. Or what do you think, Anne?
Yeah, I think what we've seen so far is, like you say, he's not going to budge no matter who we play. But that, is, for me as a fan, like going to Ellen Road and absolutely going for it excites me. Like, I'd rather see us go there and try and mix it up than go there and sit back. I mean, the potential there to lose 6-0 is very high, but you could also win 4-2. Do you know what I mean? This is where we're at. I think a lot of the talk about why we got rid of Rosinia last season was because the style of play wasn't quite entertaining enough. So our owner's big on providing entertainment value for the fans that are paying to go and watch games. I mean, there's some logic in what he says. Some of it's a bit ludicrous, like when he came out and he said he'd rather obviously lose a game 4-3 than draw 0-0. I mean, obviously points-wise that makes no sense, but entertainment-wise, he's trying to say that.
Didn't he take you on holiday, Ant, as well? Didn't he take
he's done it
fans
2 or
on
3
holiday?
times? Yeah, he takes fans on an all expenses paid 5-star trip to Turkey. He does it usually around Christmas time or pre-season, whichever one comes round. So yeah, he's been.
Sorry, I was going to say, Jimmy Berylson, if you are listening, Jesper and I are big fans of Mauritius or Dubai or Vegas. So yeah, if you're listening, mate, we're happy to be a guinea pig. Sorry, Ant, carry on, mate.
But yeah, no, he's been great, and I think what he's trying to say, obviously, because English isn't his first language, it's more not about the points that he's saying. He's saying he would much rather, as a neutral, go to a game and see a 4-3 game than he would a 0-0. So with last season, there were too many draws. We weren't winning games that we should have done. There was games where we came out of it without even a shot on target. So he's gone just absolutely, left field and gone for Tim Walter, who's just gone, right. He'll have spoke to him and said, I really want entertaining attacking football. Can you give that to me? And he'll be like, yeah, 100%. I don't care who we play. We're going to play it this way. And Adrian's gone, yeah, absolutely, you're in. So it's just a case of buckle ourselves in now this season and see where we end up. Because, like I say, we could end up relegated or we could end up in the top 6 or mid-table. There's just we don't know. So, yeah, it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah, I think that there is an excitement to that, right, as you say. And I think it's a slightly different ethos to what Millwall is about. Millwall is about being an underdog and sometimes winning in a unpretty fashion. I think what Jesper alluded to was we did try to make a bit of a transition last season. I think the key difference between what we did and what you're doing is you've done it in the summer, which gives the manager time to work on tactics a lot more without the Saturday, Tuesday. And you've done it at a time where you've got money coming in from sales and then the ability to reinvest that money so that the manager can build his own squad, right? And that's the key difference. I still think Joe Edwards was possibly the right coach, wrong time for us. We'll never know, unfortunately. And maybe you'll find out. One thing that I hope for your sake doesn't happen, maybe for our sake, I hope does. And I'm going to play a little video clip here. So thanks, Jesper, for digging this one out. For those of you listening on podcast, this is just a plug for you to try and watch it on YouTube. I'm going to roll the clip now.
Oh, what on earth has happened there? To be fair on the goalkeeper, that wasn't really the most intelligent ball from Ramos either. Of all sides.
I mean, that was, Jesper, you tell us more about that clip.
Well, it just shows how he doesn't want to compromise. I remember this game. It was in December. It was St. Pauli, Hamburg. So this was a derby, a game you definitely want to win. I can already say it ended 2-2. So result-wise, I think he came out okay. But it was heavy snow and they had to play with an orange ball. The pitch was not good. But still, they want to try and play out from the back as they usually do, instead of maybe saying in this particular game, right, you know what, guys, we're going to go a bit long. We're trying and get the ball further up the pitch. But no. So this is what you're going to get from Tim. on a rainy night in Stoke or on a sunny day in Birmingham, it's going to be the same every time.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, the thing is like we've actually already had a bit of a goalkeeping blunder like that already against Sheffield Wednesday in the cup, where
Right. Okay.
I mean, it's a bit harsh on the keeper though, because I think we'd only signed him the day before or a couple of days before, so he'd had literally no time to train with the team. He's only just come to a new country. He's probably not even settled in his house yet, and then he took straight into the starting 11 for a cup. So, but the ball's passed to him. He takes a heavy touch. It goes behind him, and the Wednesday striker just steals it and puts it into an open net. But I mean, the thing is with passing it out from the back. I mean, you see it with so many managers nowadays, that this insistence on having a goalkeeper that's good with the ball at his feet, and when realistically that's not their game. We sacrificed good goalkeeper in Matt Ingram, who was a really good shot stopper last season, to play Ryan Allsop, who wasn't such a good shot stopper, but he kept his place in the team because he could pass the ball. So we're in a phase of football where every single manager seems to be insistent on this possession-based style. They're all trying to replicate Pep and playing really fancy passes between centre back and goalkeeper. And you're thinking, the difference is Pep can spend 100 million on a goalkeeper that can do that. A team in the Championship cannot. And at least with Volta's style, it's got sort of like a purpose to it, a bit of tempo, a bit of intensity. Whereas, like what we saw with Rosina, and you'll probably see with a lot of possession-based teams, is it's quite slow and frustrating to watch as a fan, especially in the stadium. So if we're going to play that kind of football, at least it's a bit more entertaining this way. So yeah.
Well, and I'll tell you a team that doesn't play that style of football, and that is Millwall. That is us. We certainly don't play that style of football, and part of me quite likes that, if I'm honest, because it is, you're right. As the Championship becomes basically the Premier League 2, and every team has got parachute money or a manager that thinks they're the next Pep, it can be quite repetitive, and sometimes having a contrasting style can actually be fortuitous, and we certainly found that towards the back end of last season. But would be really keen to get your point of view on Millwall this season, from an outsider looking in. How do you think we'll fare? What do you make to our start? And just keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I thought Millwall quietly did some good business quite early in the window. I feel like signing Langstaff was a big one, because I feel like majority of the league were after him as well. So, coaxing him there, he must have had, obviously, it must be the style of play that he wants to play, a bit more direct and just get the ball to him, let him have a lot more of the game, things like that. But Millwall are one of those teams that you look at and you think they might struggle this season, or they might get top 6. They're quite every single season there seems to be a bit of you don't quite know what's going to happen with Millwall. And I don't know, I think from a neutral fan, it's really, really frustrating to try and when you're doing your predictions and things like that. But for Millwall fans, you must be going into every season going, I don't know what's going to happen this season, which is, again, like us this year, it's quite more entertaining. And like you say, that more traditional 4-4-2 it's rarely seen nowadays. So you guys kind of are more the Mavericks of the league, if you say so. I'm quite interested. I thought you'd managed to beat Bristol, because when I'd last checked, you were 3-2 up. I was rather surprised when I seen it. It ended 4-3. I don't quite know what happened there. But yeah, I mean, Neil Harris. Just to bring that up for you, sorry. But last season, I thought, obviously, when you made the managerial change, obviously you picked up a lot of points under Harris in this system. So, like you say, maybe with a bit of backing, you don't know what he'd be capable of doing. So I would say probably this is a season of consolidation, maybe mid-table, and then if you've got another year under him, see what you can do in summer by luring some more players in.
Yes, but how do you react to Ant's point of view as an outsider looking in?
Quite similar, but I would say it's been quite chaotic in our club the past year with the loss of our chairman, and this summer with our goalkeeper. So that has been quite depressing, actually. And we don't know how the players are reacting as well at the moment. It's tough. We know it's been tough for the players as well. It's been tough for the club. Last season, we had 4 managers, if you include our coach, Adam Barrett. But before that, we had some really good years, finished in the top 10, I think, 4 out of 5 seasons, did quite well. But just lacked that bit of flair and creativity and goals in our team that would have maybe seen us in the top 6 one of the seasons. So I think that's what we're looking at now, adding goals to our team. And I think that's why we're shipping in quite a few now, because I think there is a transition starting, not a Tim Walter one, which I just think that we are trying to sign now younger players. We are trying to develop certain things within our club. And I think the playing style will also change gradually. But we still have players who've been here for 6, 7, 8 years, which is almost unheard of. We have a back four which was actually signed. We could play with a back four, which was signed when Neil Harris was in charge the first time, and this is 7 years ago. It's absolutely mental, if you ask me, and something needs to be done about that as well. So I think I don't know what we're in for this season. I'm still positive. I'm still positive we'll turn it around with a few signings, just like you are, like you guys at Hull. And I've said from the beginning, mid-table would be fine. And then starting to see some of the younger players flourish and getting into the team.
Yeah, I mean, Jesper's more positive than I am, so that's why he's here. No, there's a lot of truth to what Jesper says, and I think that a lot of it comes back to recruitment, right? You know, we haven't sold a player for significant fee for about 5 years, and if you don't make money through sales and you're not a parachute club and you haven't got a silly billionaire owner, you're gonna struggle unless you nurture players from within. And I think we are now seeing that play out on the pitch. You know, we are backed. We have the oldest starting 11 so far in the season in the league. We have the oldest average age of the squad and the second smallest squad. You put all those things together and it could be a recipe for disaster. But we have a manager who probably will get the best out of this group of players, probably more than anyone else, given their capabilities. He's incredibly dedicated, and the players are certainly playing for him. So when you put those things together, I think we could possibly surprise some people this season, and we were very close to doing so, as you pointed out, and on Saturday. Switching gears then to this Saturday. Assume you're going, being a home game.
Yeah, I go with. There's like 10 of us that go. I'm taking my 2 daughters as well. We're all members, so yeah, we'll be there. Nice one.
I won't be because I'd have to leave my house at about 5 a.m. So I'll be watching it on good old Sky Sports. But who's your one to watch? So we talked about Liam Miller and Mellum and stuff, but who's the one that you think could really cause us problems?
Our little Turkish magician, Abdeshomer. We signed him last January. Like, out of all of the signings we made in January, he was probably the one that came with the least optimism because nobody really knew anything about him, and we've not had a good track record of bringing in any players from Turkey. I mean, we've still got Durkan Sinik in the squad, who we signed like 3 years ago, and he's played maybe 3 or 4 times. So, it's one of them. But he came in as a bit of an outsider, jumped straight into his starting 11 and looked like he'd been here about 3 years. Very confident little player, tracks back, defends, super creative. The only real weak point of his game at the minute is that little bit of end product when he gets in front of goal. Like, he could have had 2 against Plymouth if he just stopped snatching at his chances a bit, or he's got a couple of assists as well under his name so far. But he's just a busybody. He's absolutely everywhere. The perfect way to epitomise him would be like Millwall could be near our box. He'd come back, make a tackle, pass a ball, and then they would pass the ball forwards and it'd go straight back to him because he'd be straight back up there. He's just box to box constantly. I think he's better personally in the number 10. We're playing him off the right at the minute because we don't have any wingers. We're expecting to bring in maybe 2 or 3 wingers before the end of the transfer window. We had to recall Will Jarvis, and we've got a couple of other youngsters we can use there, but they're not quite championship experienced yet. So we play him out wide and then Miller on the other side. And he likes to cut in on his left foot, but in that number 10 position, so dangerous. And I think he's going to have a really big season for us this year. We've given him the number 10. So, yeah, I think once he gets his first goal, I think he'll be up and running.
Nice. Well, we'll look out for him on Saturday. And who do you think is going to be your main source of goals this season? Is Burstow the answer? I know you spent a couple of million on him. Is he the answer, or...?
No, we've brought Burstow. So our owner said in a Q&A, because the fans were getting really worried that we'd only sign 2 players and let 20 go. So in order to sort of alleviate stress, which is not a lot of football owners do this nowadays, he's seen there's a bit of concern in the fan base. He organised a Q&A to come down and we can all ask him questions. And he basically said, look, This is who we're going to sign. I'm sorry, I was at Fenerbahce. We've signed this player. We're going to do this. And everything he said so far has transpired. He said we're going to sign a young striker that's for the future, which I assume is Burstow. Apparently, the money, the transfer fee for him just made sense or something. So we must have deemed £2 million to be entirely worth it for a young 21-year-old English striker. And then he's going to bring in like a number 9, an experienced number 9 who's going to get us goals. We have saved that number 9 in the squad numbers. No one's got it yet, so they must have somebody in mind. We are going to bring in another striker. We've got Oscar Estepinian, who we had a couple of years ago, scored 13 odd goals. He's just not really technically gifted enough to play that lone striker role. He's just a poacher. You stick him in the box, the chance falls to him, he scores. But he's not going to drop deep, link up play, hold the ball up for you. It's not his game. So we are looking for a striker that can do that. We did go for the likes of Kiefer Moore, and then he chose Sheffield United instead. We almost got Brandon Thomas-Asante, and then he went to Coventry instead. So we have had a few targets we went for and just missed out on. He did mention very early in the window that it was going to go for a Philogene-esque signing that, you know, a club like us should never make, but will do. And then that's gone really quiet. So I don't know if that's happening yet. But at the minute, you would probably say our only goals are going to come from the likes of Miller, Estepinian and Malem as the squad currently is. But we are looking at bringing in wingers and another striker. So I would imagine our goal scorer is yet to come.
Right, okay. Well, we have a Scottish striker that if you fancy, that number 9 shirt going to a Scottish striker from Millwall, you let us know and we can broker the deal.
I just offered Longman.
Yeah, do you know what? I would do that right now. I don't know if you would, yes, but if you was offered, no money involved, Nisbet for Longman, would you take it?
No, I'd say I'd swap him immediately. Even if he was injured the next 6 months, I'd take Longman anyway.
And that is definitely a story for another day. But I think that says it all. So just to round up then, I'm going to come to you both for your score predictions for Saturday. So we are staring down the barrel if we don't get anything from the game on Saturday as 3 straight losses in the league, which, if I'm honest, is not really representative of our performances. I think we should have at least 2 points on the board, really, at the very least. I think how we didn't beat Watford, let alone lose to them, I don't know. But that's by the by. And we haven't lost our first 3 games for 15 seasons. And in that season, I think we went down. It was 18 years ago, sorry. So, yes, that's an unwanted outcome for Saturday for us. Yes, bro, I'll come to you first. Give me a score prediction, and if we score a goal, who will score our goal?
Well, the good thing, as you mentioned, that hasn't actually been the issue. We scored in all of our 3 games, and I think we'll score again on Saturday. And I said it here during the weekend. I think we'll win 2-0, and that's maybe me being hopeful. But I think also, hopefully, we can catch Hull in their new style of play, catch them out, maybe get at least one goal, not a cheap goal, but maybe get a goal that way. And I think then they might be chasing in the game, and we can kill it off and win 2-0. That will be my prediction.
Nice. And who's the goal scorers?
Well, I have Langstaff down, so let's hope that he plays. And then we have a hot teenager as well, who's in form, who is Romain Esse. I think he will score again. And he will be the one to watch as well if I was a Hull fan at least. He's
actually been linked to Hull before, Romain Esse.
Last January. We inquired about him last January on a loan to buy kind of basis. Nothing really came of it, I don't think. I think Millwall were like, no, you buy him or you jog on. So we jogged on, I believe.
Yeah. He's really starting to fulfill his potential. So, we'll have to see what you make of him. I'll ask you after the game and on Saturday. But so Jesper's gone very optimistic for us. And what's your score prediction?
I think the safe bet would be 1-1 because that seems to be what we're specialising in at the minute. But I went on live on to a few people earlier on TikTok, and I'm going to stick with it. I said 2-1. I said it'd be a very cagey 2-1 because we don't have 90 minutes in us yet. We have like phases of the game where we're in constant control, and then phases in the game where it looks like we're just going to kick the ball on the roof of our own net. So I don't think we've got a clean sheet in us quite yet. I would like to see 2 or 3 of the new signings come into the squad. I think Charlie Hughes will come straight in. I think Zambrano might play if he's allowed to. I don't know what's happened there with his visa or something. If he's allowed to play, he'll probably play as well. But yeah, I think it's going to be a 2-1. I think the problem with us at the minute is we don't tend to score early in games. So I think Millwall might score early on and then we come back and end up winning. I think all of our goals but one has been after the 70th minute. So it just shows you that we like to score towards the end of the game, maybe when the other team's tired a bit, chasing all of our players running around the pitch doing like 90-degree circles or something. But yeah, I'm going to stick with it. Yeah, 2-1. 2-1 win. We need to get the season up and running because we've not won even with friendlies under Volta yet. So we need a nice optimistic reason to have some faith in this season, I think.
Okay, 2-1. Right. Well, I'm going to go 2-2. And you touched on one of the reasons why I think we're going to concede again, because we've got such a small squad that we're asking the same players week in, week out to play 90 minutes against these teams that just love the ball. So I do think we'll concede. It's interesting because most of our goals have come second half. And in actual fact, I think all of them have. All of the goals we conceded are usually early on. So it'd be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out. So I'm going to go for a 2-2. I believe we will score from a set piece, a corner or something like that. Probably a Jake Cooper. He's due a goal. And then I think either Bradders or Langstaff, whoever starts. I'm going to say I reckon it'll be Bradshaw that will start, because why would Harris change it? I'd like to see Langstaff starting. I would like to see what he's got to offer. As you say, every person I seem to speak to says they're envious of us signing him, and yet we're not giving him minutes. It's a little bit bizarre, but we shall see. 2-2, I'll go for. Would I take a 2-2 right now? I probably would, especially in absence of any more signings this week with the squad paper thin. The only good news for us is Tanganga will be back, and I'm sure he will start on Saturday. But then he'll be rusty because he hasn't played too many minutes. So
cracking signing, by the way. I'd really rate Tanganga. I think that at this level would have been a good signing for anybody. Burnley or Leeds would have been a good signing for as well.
Yeah, he was the one I was surprised we signed, but unfortunately, and other than that and Langstaff, which are good signings, all we've signed is 2 goalkeepers, and
we might have another midfielder through the door by Saturday. We're really pushing hard for Lewis Travis from Blackburn. He wants a number 6 that can control the game. Obviously, he's experienced at this level. He's a good player. He went on loan to Ipswich, I think, for the last 6 months of last season as well.
Great player.
But we're expecting John Michael Sari to go to Saudi Arabia. I actually think our local journalist tweeted and said he's been told he can go. So we'll probably get a couple of mil for him, and that's a big wage off the wage budget as well. I mean, I'd hate to see Sari go because he's phenomenal, but he just doesn't suit Tim Volta's style of play. And he's in his last year of contract, so he's 33 years old. It makes sense. I think someone tweeted earlier and put about like the ages of the players that we've sold. So like Tufan, obviously Seri, if he goes, players like that. They're all like late 20s, early 30s, and we're bringing in players like Charlie Hughes, who's 20. I think the oldest player we've brought in is Marvin Malin, who's 26. Zambrano was, I think, 20, 21. Ryan Giles is mid-20s. We're getting a young side that's got, hunger, determination, really high potential. And then I think the model you have to have as an EFL club nowadays to be successful, like you was mentioning earlier, it's hard to be in this league and compete financially. So the way you've got to do it is you've got to kind of nurture these young gems, if that's through your academy like we have done with Greaves, or if you steal them from another team, to bring them in for some money and then sell them on for a lot more. That's just got to be the way that clubs are sustainable nowadays in the Football League. Because otherwise, like you say, you just can't compete with the parachute payments and the clubs that are coming down from the Prem. That's why they're always bouncing straight back up. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with the transfer business. So if Travis comes in, he might go straight into the starting 11. But with how long we usually take to announce players, I won't be surprised if it won't until next week.
Yeah, I think Travis would be a super signing. We were linked with him before he went to Ipswich. I think we signed Denor instead. But he's not just a good player, but he's a leader as well. And I think, he'll add that to any team. So, we'll have to see where he shows up. All right, gents. I think that's all for today. Really enjoyed having the conversation with you both. And just tell the listeners how they can find you and what you do for Hull.
Yeah, so I've run our podcast, the To Hull and Back podcast, since 2020. We started out thinking it'd be something we did for 6 months and then packed it in, and somehow we're still here, and we've won an award at the Football Content Award. So I don't quite know how we've ended up doing that,
Nice.
yeah, we're still going. You can find us on YouTube if you just search the Hull and Back podcast. Make sure you put the podcast bit in there, or else you get the Only Fools and Horses episode.
Wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah, it won't be a bad thing. That's what the name's based on. So yeah, you can find us on YouTube that way, or if you're audio listeners, we're on all usual platforms anyway. So you can just search us up on your Apple or your Spotify, wherever you find us. Any listens appreciated. We do try to get interviews with former players on that can be interesting. Listen, we do try and get obviously other fans on as well for some similar to this opposition views, albeit a lot less this season because we've got a radio show now as well. So time consuming wise, yeah, it's a bit tough, but yeah, we're worth a follow and we appreciate any shares, likes, subscribes, anything. Cheers, guys.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. And for any Hull fans listening to this, please likewise do the same. We're a fairly new channel. All proceeds this season will be given to Cancer Research UK. So your like, shares, subscribes is going to a good place. Even if you don't like Millwall, I'm sure you can see the benefit in certainly subscribing to the channel. So thank you. Jesper, thank you for coming on, mate. Any final words from yourself?
No. I just want to say good luck for the season and with your show as well. Obviously, I don't wish you good luck for Saturday. I hope we come away with the 3 points. But yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on here, really.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, that's a wrap then, gents. Thank you very much. Roll on Saturday. Thank you for listening, and bye for now.